Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're taking on the concept of mastery.
Oh, a fascinating topic. Really is.
Yeah. And to guide us, we have George Leonard's book, Mastery. Now, I know you, our listeners, are all about growing, learning, so I think you'll find this one, well, pretty insightful.
It's a classic for a reason. Definitely.
At its core, the book argues that mastery isn't about reaching some final destination.
Right, right.
It's more about the path you're on. And get this, it applies to pretty much everything we do.
Absolutely. And Leonard really challenges this idea we have, that mastery should come quick and easy.
Oh, like it should just happen overnight.
Exactly, like some magic trick.
Hmm.
But he argues, no, true mastery, it's a journey. And it's a journey with plateaus, with setbacks. You got to embrace those.
So no quick fixes then?
Nope, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
He actually introduces this idea called the mastery curve. It's a visual, like a graph of how we actually learn.
Interesting.
So you have these bursts of progress, right? You're learning fast, things are clicking.
Okay, I'm with you.
Then, bam, you hit a plateau, progress slows down, maybe even feels like it stops, and then whoosh, up you go again.
That makes sense. Kind of like waves, right?
Exactly. And he uses a great example to illustrate this. Imagine a baby learning to touch its own forehead.
Oh, seems simple enough now.
Right. But for a baby, huge accomplishment.
Think about it, though. All that coordination, the spatial awareness, even just mimicking what they see, their brains are working overtime.
And the thing is, this pattern, it's not just for babies. It applies to way more complex skills, too.
Okay, I see where you're going with this, like learning tennis.
Exactly. So picture this. You're taking lessons, super excited at first. You pick up the basics quickly, forehand, backhand.
Got it, feeling good.
Then comes the tricky part. Coordinating movement, the swing.
Yeah, it all has to come together.
And suddenly, bam, you're stuck. Progress stalls. You hit the plateau. And this, Leonard says, is where most people quit.
I can see why. That feeling of getting nowhere, it's discouraging.
Especially in our world today. Everything's got to be instant, right? Quick results, instant gratification.
Yeah, we're bombarded with those messages everywhere.
So we start to think, hey, learning should be effortless.
And if it's not, we give up.
Pretty much. And Leonard actually calls this the war against mastery.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. So we're fighting against our own culture, in a way.
Exactly. This constant need for instant results, it makes it so hard to embrace the plateaus. But those plateaus, they're crucial for deep learning, for real growth.
Makes you think. That brings to mind those three archetypes Leonard describes: the dabbler, the obsessive, and the hacker.
Ah, yes, those are great examples of how we try to avoid that mastery path.
Yeah, each one takes a different approach, but they all fall short in the end.
Right. So the dabbler, super enthusiastic at first, jumps into new things.
The initial excitement.
But the minute it gets tough, they're gone. On to the next shiny thing.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
Their learning graph, it's like a roller coaster. Lots of ups and downs,
Yeah.
but no real progress.
Always chasing the next thing. Then we have the obsessive.
Right, completely driven by results. Got to achieve, got to win.
Pushing themselves relentlessly.
Burning the candle at both ends, which often leads to burnout, even injuries. Their graph, it's like a steep climb, then a crash.
Sprinting a marathon, you might get a head start, but you're not finishing the race.
Exactly. And lastly, we have the hacker, content with just getting by.
Good enough is their motto.
They reach a basic level of competency, and that's it. No desire to go further. Their graph, basically a flat line, stagnation.
Okay, so we've got the dabbler, quits too soon, the obsessive burns out, and the hacker, well, they just settle. So how do we avoid these traps?
Well, Leonard offers a solution. It might sound counterintuitive, but he calls it loving the plateau.
Loving the plateau, but that's where we feel stuck.
I know, right? But instead of seeing it as a negative, as an obstacle,
We should embrace it.
exactly. See it as a chance to grow, to deepen your understanding.
So when we feel that frustration, instead of giving up,
We find a way to actually enjoy that stage.
wow, that's a real mindset shift.
He actually talks about his own experience with Aikido. Even when he wasn't seeing big improvements, he found joy in just practicing consistently.
Really, so it's about the journey, not just the destination.
Absolutely. He talks about the drive to the dojo, the smell of the hall, the feel of the mat. He absorbed it all.
Sounds almost meditative.
It was. And because there was no pressure to achieve, to reach a specific goal.
The practice itself became the reward.
Exactly. And this ties into intrinsic motivation, finding enjoyment in the process, not just the outcome.
Makes me think of that quote, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step."
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But Leonard also quotes Olympic gymnast Peter Vidmar, and he says, people who get into something for the money, the fame, or the medal can't be effective. When you discover your own desire, you're not going to wait for other people to find solutions to your problems. You're going to find your own. It's
Yeah.
powerful stuff.
Yeah, it really is. So if we're embracing the plateau, what does actual mastery look like then? Is it all grit and pushing through the pain?
Actually, no. Leonard challenges that idea completely. He talks about what he calls the face of mastery. And it's not about struggle. It's about serenity. It's about effortless performance.
Effortless. But I thought mastery required effort,
It does, but it's not about forcing yourself. It's about finding that flow state.
where you're fully present, totally absorbed in what you're doing.
Exactly. And he contrasts this with how the media portrays mastery. It's all about those climactic moments in sports, right? The winning shot, the medal ceremony.
But they never show the years of practice leading up to it.
Exactly. It's like focusing on the highlight reel and ignoring the entire film.
So how do we cultivate this effortless mastery? Any tips?
Leonard outlines 5 keys to mastery: instruction, practice, surrender, intentionality, and the edge.
Okay, let's break those down. Starting with instruction. What does Leonard say about finding the right teacher?
It's not just about credentials. Look at the teacher's students.
So it's about more than just what's on paper.
Are they engaged, enthusiastic? Do they respect their teacher? That tells you a lot.
So it's about finding someone who inspires, not just instructs.
Exactly. And he talks about respecting even the slowest learners.
Really? Why is that important?
Well, he tells a story from his time as a flight instructor. At first, he focused all his attention on the most talented students.
The ones who are naturals.
Right. But then he realized, a truly great teacher, they bring everyone along, no matter their aptitude.
So it's not about creating superstars, it's about helping everyone reach their potential.
Okay, what about practice? I have a feeling this one's a biggie.
Oh, it is. He emphasizes that consistent, dedicated practice is essential for mastery, even when it feels repetitive, boring even.
The grind, as they say.
That's where you build the foundation for excellence.
Trusting the process, even when it's tough.
And he argues that this quick fix mentality we have, it makes us devalue practice. He even writes, the people we know as masters don't devote themselves to their particular skill just to get better at it. The truth is, they love to practice, and because of this, they do get better. So it's not about forcing yourself. It's about finding that love for the process.
Okay, I'm intrigued by surrender. How does that fit into mastery?
It might seem counterintuitive, but it's crucial. It's about letting go of your ego.
Being okay with looking foolish, making mistakes.
Yes, because to learn something new, you have to become a beginner again.
Even if it means stepping back from your current skill level.
He tells the story about 2 karate experts learning Aikido. One of them, Russell, really struggled to let go of his expertise.
Because he was trying to apply what he already knew to a new discipline.
Exactly. He was so focused on his old skills, he couldn't open himself up to the new ones.
So he was limiting his own growth.
Yes. And this idea of surrender, it applies to giving up expertise to reach a higher level too. He uses his experience with jazz piano.
So he had to let go of something he was good at to become even better.
He had a comfortable style, but to play with a new band, he had to push himself, let go of old habits.
I bet that was tough. It was. He said it felt like everything was falling apart at first. But he pushed through and reached a new level of mastery.
That takes courage, to be in that in-between space.
It does. But that's often where the greatest growth happens. Now, what about intentionality? I'm curious about Leonard's take on mindset.
Me too, especially since we've been talking about enjoying the process, intrinsic motivation.
Well, he's a big believer in the power of intention. From mindset to visualization, even what he calls the mental game.
So our thoughts actually affect our reality.
He believes so. He says mastering our mental landscape is just as important as any physical skill.
I remember he talks about ki too.
Yes, that vital energy that flows through everything. And he connects it to intentionality.
Interesting, but how do we actually use this? It seems kind of abstract.
He suggests techniques like visualization. Imagine yourself performing the skill perfectly.
Like mental rehearsal.
Exactly. And positive self-talk. Replace negative thoughts with empowering ones. It's about consciously shaping your mindset. Okay, we've got instruction, practice, surrender, and intentionality. What about the edge? Doesn't that contradict the whole enjoy the plateau thing?
Yeah, it seems like they'd clash.
It might seem that way, but Leonard argues it's about balance. pushing boundaries, taking risks, but calculated ones.
So not just reckless abandon, but a solid foundation, then pushing further.
He uses Chuck Yeager as an example,
Yeah.
the pilot who broke the sound barrier.
A true master of his craft.
Yeager believed in experience, in practice, but he also pushed the limits.
He had that balance of mastery and daring, knew the rules, then bent them.
Exactly. But the edge isn't recklessness. It's about deep understanding, then using that to explore the unknown.
So it's exploration, but grounded in mastery. That's fascinating. And what I love is that Leonard doesn't just talk about this in terms of skills or crafts. He applies it to everyday life, even relationships.
Absolutely. The same principles apply to navigating change, maintaining energy.
Which are essential for mastery in any area.
Without a doubt. Yeah. You know, it's a kind of funny, right? Like our own bodies can sometimes work against us when we're trying to, grow, change.
What do you mean?
Leonard talks about this thing called homeostasis.
Homeostasis.
Yeah. It's this tendency our bodies have, our brains even, our social systems, to want to stay the same, like a built-in equilibrium, even if that same isn't, good for us.
So it's not just us being stubborn, like there's an actual biological reason we resist change.
Exactly. It's like an internal thermostat. Got to keep everything just so. Think about body temperature, right? If it goes too high or too low, we're in trouble.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the body has these feedback loops to keep it in a safe range. And the thing is, it's not just physical. This happens with our mental and emotional states, too. Even our behavior patterns.
I can see how that makes it hard to break old habits or start new ones. So how does this homeostasis affect us when we're trying to make positive changes?
Well, imagine you're trying to start exercising, right?
Yeah.
After years of being a couch potato,
Okay, I'm picturing it.
your body might freak out a little. Dizziness, nausea, your heart's racing. It's like your system is screaming, whoa, 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 this is not normal.
So even though it's good for us, our body sees it as a threat.
Yep, pretty much. And this happens on a psychological and social level, too. Leonard gives this example of a family with an alcoholic father.
Okay, I'm listening.
So the father stops drinking, which is great, right? But the family dynamic, it shifts.
Things are different.
And sometimes another family member will unconsciously create some other problem.
To fill that void.
Exactly, to maintain that same level of dysfunction.
Wow, that's kind of a scary thought. So how do we overcome this resistance to change, especially when we're trying to, achieve mastery?
First step, awareness. Expect resistance. Know that those alarm bells are going to go off.
So we go into it knowing it's going to be tough.
Right. Don't be surprised by the discomfort. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong.
So those negative feelings, they don't necessarily mean we should stop.
Nope. In fact, they might mean you're actually making progress. And here's another interesting approach. Leonard suggests negotiating with that resistance.
Negotiating. How do you negotiate with resistance?
It's about acknowledging it, honoring it even, instead of fighting against it. So instead of saying, ugh, I should be exercising more, which just makes you feel guilty.
Right.
Try something like, I'm curious to see how it feels to move my body more.
Wow, that's subtle, but I can feel the difference.
It's about inviting yourself to explore, to experiment, not battling yourself, and make small changes too, not a total overhaul overnight.
Baby steps.
Exactly. And surround yourself with support.
Yeah.
People who cheer you on, who get it.
Having that community makes a big difference, I think.
Oh, definitely. And Leonard also talks about having a regular practice, not just for the skill you're mastering, but in other areas of life too.
Why is that important?
It creates a sense of stability when everything else is changing.
Okay, like a grounding force.
Exactly. If you already have something consistent, exercise, meditation, whatever works for you,
It provides a foundation.
as you're navigating those shifts and challenges that come with mastery.
Like a home base you can always return to.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And of course, he emphasizes being a lifelong learner.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that theme come up.
It's woven throughout his whole approach.
Yeah.
And it's more than just learning new facts or skills.
It's a mindset.
Absolutely. Being open, curious, willing to embrace change, seek out new challenges.
Seeing everything as a learning opportunity. So we talked about resistance to change. What about maintaining energy and motivation over time? That's a big one.
It is, especially for long-term goals.
Mm.
And Leonard, he offers some really smart strategies.
Like what?
Well, he emphasizes that we're not machines that run out of energy.
Okay, that's interesting.
We're machines that wear out from lack of use.
So the more we use our energy, the more we have.
Exactly. He even writes, most of us know at least one of those prodigies of energy who get far more than their share of the world's work and play accomplished. When we stop to think about it, almost all of us can bring to mind periods when we, too, were bursting with energy, when no mountain seemed too high for us, when the boundaries between work and play blurred and finally disappeared. It's in us. We just got to tap into it.
Makes sense. We've all had those moments where we feel unstoppable, right? Like we're firing on all cylinders.
Exactly. But how do we access that more consistently?
That's the million-dollar question.
Leonard suggests a few things. Physical fitness, for one,
Taking care of the body.
impacts our mental and emotional energy, too, big time.
Yeah, when you feel good physically, everything else seems easier.
He also talks about acknowledging the negative, but accentuating the positive.
Focusing on what's working.
Right, and there's research on this. People with a positive outlook, they tend to have more energy and resilience.
Makes sense. Focus on what you can control, not what's draining you.
He even suggests honoring, but not indulging our own dark side.
Interesting. So acknowledge those difficult emotions, but don't let them take over.
Exactly. And another key one, honesty.
Being truthful.
To yourself and others. It's incredibly energizing. He says, telling the truth is energizing. Every time you tell a lie, you have to cover it with another lie, and another, and another. You spend a lot of your energy trying to maintain your own self-deception. Makes you think.
Yeah, it's like carrying around this big weight. The more honest we are, the lighter we feel.
And he emphasizes setting clear priorities,
Oh, that's a good one.
especially today, right? So many options, opportunities.
Easy to get overwhelmed trying to do it all.
He suggests making a list, everything you want to accomplish, then prioritize. A, B, C categories.
Okay, so focus on the A's, the most important ones.
Right. Creates a sense of accomplishment momentum.
Makes sense. Be intentional with your time and energy. So we have our priorities. Now what? How do we actually get started?
Make commitments. Take action. He says, the journey of mastery is ultimately goalless. You take the journey for the sake of the journey itself. But, as I've pointed out, there are interim goals along the way. The first of which is simply starting the journey. Just start. Take that first step.
Sometimes the hardest part, right?
It can be, but then build momentum through action.
And how do we stay motivated once we've started?
Deadlines. He says those are powerful. External ones, sure, but even self-created ones.
That sense of urgency can be motivating.
And he brings back the regular practice idea.
That seems to be his answer to everything.
It's kind of his foundation. He writes, over the long haul, there's nothing like the path of mastery to lead you to an energetic life. A regular practice not only elicits energy, but tames it. Without the firm underpinnings of a practice, deadlines can produce violent swings between frantic activity and collapse. It's a balancing act.
Focused effort, but sustainable energy, so we don't burn out. Now, Leonard also talks about those pitfalls on the path to mastery, right? Like things that can derail us.
Yeah, he does, yeah. And he gives strategies for dealing with them, plus some really cool insights into mastering even the most mundane stuff.
Okay, I'm definitely curious to hear about those pitfalls. What can we expect on this journey?
Let's dive into those next.
Okay, let's talk about those pitfalls then. Those obstacles on the path to mastery.
Yeah, it's like, you've got the roadmap, but Leonard's also pointing out those potholes you got to watch out for.
So we don't go veering off course. So what's the first one we should be aware of?
Well, he talks about having a conflicting way of life. Basically, it's those parts of your lifestyle that, work against your goals.
No, I see. Like a mismatch between what you're trying to achieve and how you're actually living.
Exactly. Say you're trying to master something physically demanding, right?
Okay, got it.
But you're not sleeping enough, eating junk food, super stressed out. You're creating this conflict that's going to make it way harder to progress.
It's like trying to run uphill with weights on your ankles.
Exactly. And another one he highlights is what he calls obsessive goal orientation.
Sounds familiar.
It takes us back to that instant gratification thing. It's being so fixated on the end result that you lose sight of the journey.
So it's not that goals are bad, but being too attached to them can backfire.
Right. When we're only focused on the outcome, we create all this pressure, this anxiety, and that can actually mess with our performance.
And our enjoyment, too, I bet.
For sure. We got to loosen up, trust the process. What else? Oh, he talks about finding a good teacher, of course, and the dangers of bad instruction.
Right, we touched on that earlier.
And also the challenges of, both a lack of competitiveness and too much competitiveness.
Finding that sweet spot. Not too complacent, but not pushing ourselves to the breaking point either.
Exactly. It's a balance. And he talks about laziness too, but he doesn't frame it in a judgmental way. It's more about recognizing when you're not really engaged, not enthusiastic about your practice.
So it's not always about just being lazy, but maybe something deeper going on.
Could be. And injuries, of course, Those can set us back, physical and psychological. He stresses the importance of listening to your body, giving yourself time to heal.
Sometimes the most masterful move is to rest.
Absolutely. What about pitfalls that are, specific to our culture today?
I'm curious about that.
He warns against the allure of drugs, using substances as a shortcut to mastery.
Oh, like trying to hack your way there.
Exactly. True mastery, it's built through effort, dedication, not external stuff.
It's an inside job. What about pitfalls related to our ego, our self-image?
He talks about getting fixated on external validation, prizes, medals, all that.
Seeking approval from others.
Right. True mastery, it's an internal reward. It's not about what others think.
It's about finding that satisfaction within yourself.
And vanity, too. Being so focused on how you appear, you lose sight of the real purpose of your practice.
We're all about appearances.
And he warns against taking yourself too seriously. Don't forget humor, playfulness.
Even when you're pushing your limits.
Exactly. Bring some joy into it. And consistency is key, of course. He talks about the pitfalls of starting and stopping, letting things slide when it gets tough.
Ah, yeah, that's easy to do.
And perfectionism. That can really hold us back.
Always striving for that flawless ideal, which doesn't even exist.
Right. Mastery is not about perfection. It's about continually growing, evolving. Now, what I find super interesting is that Leonard says we can apply this concept of mastery to even the most, well, mundane things.
This everyday stuff.
He says, yep, everything we do, driving, cleaning, cooking.
Bringing intentionality to those things we usually just rush through.
He uses driving as an example.
Yeah.
Instead of just getting from A to B.
Yeah, we're all guilty of that.
He says, be present. Pay attention to the feel of the steering wheel, the sounds, the sights.
Turning it into a mindful experience.
Exactly. And relationships, too.
Oh, that's a good one.
Same principles apply. Intentionality, practice, surrender, even that edge.
Cultivating mastery and how we connect with others.
It's a journey, just like any other. Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. It's like Leonard's given us a whole new toolkit for approaching, well, everything.
And he ends the book with a great question. What area of your life are you ready to approach with the mindset of mastery? It's something to really consider.
Yeah, where do we want to apply this? What are we ready to master?
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into George Leonard's mastery. I hope you found it as insightful as we did. Until next time, keep seeking, keep striving, and keep mastering.